Thank you, Tim. Thank you very much. And as you say, how on earth do you follow that? No upbeat video, but maybe an upbeat précis about our industry. So that's hopefully sufficient for you to as following that. Tim and I were very keen to add a little bit more about sort of the economic side. As there's some of you that remember coming to this event 9-10 years ago, we used to have an economist from KPMG coming and presenting to us. So we are not going to get that standard. However, we're going to attempt to try and replicate a little bit of that time. So without further ado, in my 10 minutes, what I want to cover is a little bit about the economic side, a number of those areas there, and then some details about our industry and what's happened in the last 10, 12 months or so into 2022. So on the economic side, the UK has been growing fast. I think people will be saying, crikey, Corrugated has been growing fast, but how's the wider macroeconomic picture? UK economy is doing well. Recovering, or the recovery is going well. We're also, the UK has been outperforming some other countries in terms of economic factors. So I think start to build a picture of what's happening for us. Positive. What's happening with other indicators? I don't know about you. We do quite a bit of work in our business helping people with employment. And around about July, pre-July, lots of people available, lots of good people available, and we're able to help to furnish our customers with good candidates. And one of those slides, this one here, from this organisation called Indeed. And Indeed, we work closely with the Indeed setup. Suddenly in July, August, not so easy. And right now, it's extremely difficult to be able to find people. That indicator, and all three of these are saying that actually people are well employed, demand for labour is growing, the percentage of people that are economically unemployed is dropping, and the hours that people are working is growing. So again, quite from a personal point of view and from an employee's point of view, quite upbeat, although a couple of factors to think about in there. Then in terms of what's happening in terms of the relative position of pound versus dollar, pound versus euro, pound recovering versus the dollar. So again, faring well in the international scene, and the pound, I would say, stable, found a sort of stable position against the euro. So again, pretty good, and actually at that level, probably encouraging exports and encouraging the opportunities for the UK trading in Europe and in America and further afield. And how about the other factors? So GDP, where's GDP? GDP again recovering, and actually quite interesting, on that chart at the bottom, the UK 8th against 35 other countries, well-known countries. So, there's an optimistic, positive view about how we're faring. And I think it's important when we consider how busy we've been in the corrugated industry, just to remember and to consider how we're doing from an economy point of view. Every slide should have a caveat, and this one has the caveat. So the one on the left is saying what could be coming. And I think I remember us talking about it on the number of the Zoom meetings that we've had and have operated as the SPA. Actually, inflation started to become a factor that people are concerned about and are expressing concern, and the economic forecasters are indicating that could be significant for the UK, as with other countries, but significant for the UK. But on the other side then is also the UK GDP relative to other countries buoyant, was probably some of the most buoyant in this slide, and then a question mark about how things might be in 2022 and 2023. But as we know, people who predict things don't necessarily get things right, and I'll come back to that later on. So how about us? How have we been faring? What have things been like in Europe? Global trading, as we said, lumpy. And actually, it's been lumpy in all parts, major parts of the world. People who keep an eye on this, and for those that may recall, I have an interest in a wildlife business where we import products from the Far East, and the cost of those containers that used to bring our products in went from $3,000 at the beginning of 2021 to $15,000 at a peak, and they're still at $12,000. And that is, you can virtually wipe out the profit that you might have made on that. So it's quite an issue. The reason I mention that is an issue that's happening for many, many companies who either import raw materials or import the finished product. So customers of yours that want to ship something. So there's huge pressure on, one, the cost of things. And then the second, and we were interesting talking to Mike Ling about the cost of containers and the cost of supply chain. Supply chain has become very difficult not just for waste paper, corrugated board, etc. It's all the way through to all sorts of other materials in 2021. Brexit, a lot of noise at the beginning, I would say, and particularly Q1. And I would say from what the conversation I have with customers now, actually that's pretty well gone away, depending on whether you had a political reason for raising it, but from an economic one. And then working from home becoming a norm, and what a difference that made in the first half of the year, and what a difference from a corrugated point of view, because people working from home ordered things, and those things needed to be shipped in boxes. So demand for e-commerce and food and drink leapt up, lead times leaping up, all things that you remember. 4 new recycling mills coming on board, and we'll come back to that a bit later on. And then many price increases and recycled papers in short supply, both for corrugated and cartons. And we know right now, anybody who buys cartons, big problem trying to get a hold of the board for those cartons. How did we fare? So this is the UK. I always try and show these month-on-month figures. So and a bit like I was saying about Indeed, the first half of it's been a game of two halves, I think, to anybody who's interested in football. The first half, phenomenal demand, and that demand started in November of 2020, where it rocketed for sheep plants in particular. And I think that was sort of new people coming to shipping their goods. So a lot of new businesses started off, and that continued into 2021. So growth rates, phenomenal growth rates, double-digit figures, both for the whole of the industry and significantly double-digit for sheep plants. And then sort of a more tempered but still high growth. And so overall, plus 4%. Well, it's not often you see the UK corrugated industry growing by plus 4% in 1 year. I've seen it fairly rarely, and only in times of superinflation, perhaps, when I started in the industry. So it's pretty unusual. And then for the sheep plant industry to grow by 7.5%, and I guess you probably felt it in 2021, and that's demonstrating it was a mad year. Somebody was talking to you, mad year. It was indeed. Some of the factors then, so what's going to happen, Neil, and what happened, some of the drivers. So OCC, and thank you very much for Frauke. Frauke is here, one of our friends from Ovid. And Ovid, as you can see, the reflection of OCC, so old corrugated cases. So it's a driver for recycled papers, which then go into our goes into our recycled test papers. You can see first half of the year, rapid drop in price in the second or the third quarter, and then a levelling and a slight rise in the price of OCCs. Worth keeping an eye on this into 2022. And I'll come back to that on the very bottom part there. So yeah, phenomenal growth, plus 4.2% overall, plus 6.3% in the last 2 years for our industry, pretty phenomenal. Plus 7.5, nearly 7.5 for the sheep plant market, and plus 10 for the last 2 years. And waste paper started off at, and this is waste paper, not OCC, so this is mixed waste. Started off at £45 a tonne, and now it's eased back a bit from the high to £100 a tonne, and you'll hear more about the price of waste paper from our next speakers. For those people that have invested in, excuse this, the plug. So my company every now and again does a report. We did a report in 2020, did one in 2014. And in 2020, we predicted that the corrugated industry would grow by something like just over or just under 1% in 2020 and 2% in 2021. As it turned out, it wasn't. So those green lines indicate what it grew at. So plus 2% in 2020, plus 4%, 4.2% in 2021. So we're rewriting that report. And for those people that invested, we're doing an update, which will be at the beginning of February. For those that have invested, we'll have that for free. For those that haven't invested, please make contact with me. Why should you? Because we contain also some other details about the size of groups and standalone sheep plants. And so we've represented our industry, which hasn't been represented before, in this way. And we've also done it in terms of sheep feeder supply and how that's set up. But please, if you're interested, talk to me later on. And then really, just what do we see as the prospects? I get furnished information about what's happening in the further and far parts of the world. So Far East North America and Europe, very busy. UK, we know, is still busy. And talking with people now, I can hear it's still busy. Talked about the two halves of last year, and that seems to be at that level that we've got to at the end of 2021. We seem to be continuing that way. Fibre recovery improved. Paper supply improved in terms of you can get paper now, whereas it was harder. And sheet supply definitely improving. I mean, the lead times of 10, 12 weeks. Talking to people now, it's much more, it's days, 10, 12 days or less than that. Demand for our product remains high. Most importantly, this, and I've said this a few times, customer service, vitally important, and that's going to be the lead thing to distinguish people, and sheep plants are brilliant at customer service, so please keep playing to your strengths. And the last bit, plastic, definitely, it's the long-term opportunity. And we watch that, and we certainly see great opportunities in there. So economically positive, and from a corrugated point of view, I think pretty positive.